Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Assuming the Risk for Your Own eBook, co-presented by Data Conversion Laboratory and Bowker. My name is Linda Casola. I am Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I am very, very proud to present my partner in crime for today, Laura Dawson. Laura is Product Manager, for Identifiers Services at Bowker, where she runs selfpublishedauthor.com, a website for independently published authors. She also manages Bowker's development of the International Standard Name Identifier, in other words, ISNI, the ISO standard that identifies contributor names. Previously, Laura has worked at Firebrand, Muze, Rovi, SirsiDynix, BarnesandNoble.com, and Doubleday. As a consultant, her clients have included McGraw-Hill, Cengage, Audible, Alibris, Ingram Book Group, I should say, Bowker, Baker & Taylor, and Book Industry Study Group. So needless to say, Laura's pedigree is a great one and certainly going to bring you a lot of good ideas today for getting started with your own self-published products. Just a couple of things before we get started. I do want to let you know that today's broadcast is being recorded, so should you miss anything or need additional information, you can certainly go to the DCL or DCLab.com website under webinars, and you will find it archived along with all the others that we have live. I want to take a couple of minutes also to let you know that we will be answering questions at the end. So please feel free to write any in the chat box as they come to mind, and we will pick up on those and hopefully be able to answer all before the end of the broadcast. Any that we do not have a time to answer, however, we will make certain that we send that out so that you have all the information that you need. I wanted to also take a minute to just briefly introduce data conversion for those of you who are not familiar with DCL. We certainly have been around for a very long time, certainly predating a lot of the technologies that we're currently working on. Next slide, please, Laura. Obviously, we work with all different types of content, so ebook production is a big part of the services that we provide, along with many, many others. Certainly important for those of you who may be looking to publish technical documentation into ebook format. We serve a very, very broad client base, as you will see here, as well as support self-published authors, small publishers, as well as the large ones, of course, and many of the distribution channels. Our industries are vast. I can't imagine actually one that we don't support, but it's important for you to see the broad list. And from there, that brings me to Laura. I would like to say also that this particular webinar is the first in a 6-part series, all based on best practices for self-publishing books. We will be featuring many guest speakers as we move through the series on topics such as editing, design and production, marketing and publicity, rights, distribution, and so on. So please stay tuned for more information.
Great, Linda, thank you.
And Laura?
I just want to say a couple words about Bowker. Bowker's mission is essentially just connecting readers with books. However, we're able to facilitate that and then to provide insights into how readers are reading worldwide. We are the world's leading provider of bibliographic information to a lot of different clients, including all of the major search engines. We're part of ProQuest, which is a library database company and that provides also tools for discovery in libraries. And we are the official source of ISBNs in the United States and Australia. These are some sample customers at Bowker. In addition to these, we also support Yahoo, Bing, and Google with their book discovery initiatives. So we're pretty much everywhere there is to be found. So basically, just to dive right in, one of the critical benefits of self-publishing is that you can choose your own path. You might be a great designer and a poor marketer, so you do your own design while hiring a marketing expert. You might wish to learn both as you go, every step of the way. It's important to remember that each step in your workflow is going to cost something. It's going to cost time, it's going to cost money, or both. And this is what we mean when we say assuming the risk for your own ebook. That assumption of risk is a role that traditional publishers have mostly filled up to this point. Publishers take on a manuscript in the hopes that it will do well. They invest in each one of these workflow steps, and they hope to see a return on that investment through sales. So you may or you may not wish to do it yourself at each step, and really only you can decide what you are innately, good at and what you're going to need some outside help with. So just looking at these different workflow steps individually, there are several different types of editing. A developmental editor helps you shape your book. Rather than focusing on a line-by-line edit, which is what line editing is, the goal is to focus on the structural organization of the book. Does the narrative flow coherently? Are there plot holes? Are terms explained appropriately for the audience that you're marketing the book to? A developmental editor will help you trim areas of your book that are too long, punch up details that need highlighting. Sometimes they're called book doctors, just like scripts have script doctors. So the question is, do you really need a developmental editor? Well, most books need another set of eyes to objectively review the content. It's a rare author who can write a perfect book without feedback. A developmental editor doesn't rewrite the book, but helps its evolution in the writer's own voice. A good copy editor will adjust your punctuation, spelling, question whether or not you really want to use jargon, make sure you're using the right terminology, and can keep you from embarrassing errors of usage. She'll keep your language consistent from page to page and ensure that you capitalize names properly. Most of us, even English majors, make grammatical mistakes, and the difference between a copy-edited book and one that has not been copy-edited is enormous. Copy editing doesn't change the substance of what you're writing about. In fact, it enhances it. It clarifies meaning and corrects distracting mistakes. Traditional publishing houses either have copy editors on staff or they outsource this function to qualified professionals. In both cases, every book that passes through a publishing house gets a thorough going over to ensure that the manuscript is free of mistakes and conveys the author's message concisely. Copy editing is different from proofreading, which happens on a facsimile of the final product, and proofreading can catch errors of typography. Copy editing, though, is focused on errors of meaning. Self-published books frequently suffer for want of copy editing, and this is one of the differentiating factors that can make a self-published book appear less professionally produced than a traditional published one. If you're writing nonfiction, you may want to invest in the services of a fact checker. Fact checkers adhere to a rigorous standard, questioning assertions and asking for documentation and citations to support those assertions. Magazines employ fact checkers. Newspapers and book publishers don't generally have fact-checking departments for completely different reasons. At a newspaper, the reporter is the source of the facts, and it's up to him to maintain accuracy. The deadlines for news publications are severe and don't allow for the same leisure for fact-checking that magazine deadlines have. At book publishers, it's the quantity of information that's being published, which is so great that holding up publication of any given book is too onerous a burden. Again, the writer's responsible for the facts in the book, and frequently the writer must either be that fact checker himself or contract that work out. If your book discusses the lives or actions of people who can be identified, you may want to have it vetted by a lawyer, and this will help avoid potential lawsuits like defamation or libel or other charges. In terms of marketing and publicity, this is a little tougher. It's quite different to determine whether you are overspending or underspending on marketing, so proceed cautiously. Spend it incrementally and try to benchmark any possible results. Doing it yourself saves money but can become an enormous investment of time, so consider it accordingly. At Bowker, Books in Print lists about 28 million ISBNs that are being actively bought and sold in the US, UK, and Australia. This, of course, does not include books with no ISBNs, so it's not a global figure, but it's enough of a number to emphasize the point that there are an awful lot of books out there. And a self-published author without the marketing and PR engine of a large publishing house behind her, or the funds to take out TV advertising time, desperately needs her readers to find her book amid these millions of others. More and more shopping is done via search. So metadata assumes a critical importance. If your metadata reflects the keywords that are being searched on, your book has a better chance of being found on search engines, which link to your bookstore listings. The search engine is now the primary intermediary between your book and its reader. The Book Industry Study Group has a list of 31 core elements of metadata, and this is a good guide to what both online bookstores and search engines look for in a book listing. If your book is not sufficiently described in a way search engines understand, you run the risk of the book not coming up as readers are searching on the topics you're an expert in. It's important to also remember there are many different sources of metadata. In addition to Books in Print, book distributors send out data feeds. OCLC's WorldCat is used by search engines as well. Online bookstores have their own staff who make manual changes to the data. Any one of these sources could be making changes to your book listings, so tracking down the source of incorrect or incomplete data can sometimes be difficult. Your best approach is to make sure that your data is correct at Books in Print and then track the different places where your book is listed and correct data there as well. Smith Publicity, who partnered with us on the white paper we're producing as a result of this webinar, has some tips about using local media that self-published authors can benefit from. First, they suggest that you contact your local library. If you're an author, chances are they already know you. You can tell them about your book. Circulation managers or acquisitions managers are the titles of the librarians you want to speak with. They can help you brainstorm on ideas to get your book available in their library, and then send friends to check it out at the library to build demand. You can ask about doing an event or a reading at the library. You can contact your local newspaper. Remember, the key is to start small. Reach out to your county or town daily and weekly newspapers to let them know you've written a book. Provide them with a synopsis of your book, applicable audiences, and a review copy. You can offer to even email them your author photo and a book cover. As a local author, you will be of interest to the local community. There's a natural angle, which is the key to attracting the attention of the local journalists. You can pitch to local television and radio programs. Again, locality is the key here. These programs need to provide content, and there you are writing in their area, so you have something to offer them. Regarding advertising, book publicists are different from advertising. When a book is launched, the goal is to create awareness about the author and his or her title for a variety of reasons, including sparking book sales, building the author's brand, positioning the author as an expert, or attracting professional opportunities for the author, such as speaking engagements or consulting. So publicity and advertising are two strategies, different strategies, employed to create awareness. Most people have a clear understanding of advertising since they're exposed to it every day as they watch television. Publicity, though, is seamless to most consumers, as the author, person, or product is part of the news. With Publicity, the book publicist's job is to introduce the media to an author and pitch why the author will provide readers or listeners with meaningful information. The author and the book become part of the news story rather than a paid advertisement. Put simply, the role of a book publicist is to make their authors newsworthy. This result gives the author immeasurable credibility. The benefit of being seen on or featured in well-respected media outlets lasts long after a publicity campaign ends. The primary benefit of publicity is credibility. In terms of distribution, there are a number of different approaches that you can take. Obviously, physical bookstores are the biggest challenge for any small publisher or self-published author because retail outlets for books are closing rapidly. So what you want to focus on primarily are online bookstores. Digital bookshops have a much lower barrier to entry because they're not the same space concerns. Online bookstores like to offer as wide an inventory as possible. You want to ensure that the format of the digital book you're sending out matches what the vendor accepts. So you have to make sure that you're reading your vendor's requirements carefully and doing what they want. You need to keep your vendors happy. They have a lot of suppliers. As a publisher, the bookstore is actually your customer, and of course you want to give your customer good service. Customers respond well when they're treated well. They buy more of your product, so it's very much in your interest to treat the booksellers the way they want to be treated, even if it means a little extra work and thought, because of course bookstores are the portal to your readers. So there are a number of possible distribution snafus that can occur. You might accidentally send an EPUB book to Amazon, which only distributes Kindle books. Amazon will convert that book, but it won't necessarily be converted as well as you might have done it yourself. So really, you want to make sure that you're giving the vendors the formats that they need, the cover images in the specifications that they need, because that will ensure that your book can be sold seamlessly. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Linda for a discussion on design. Linda?
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that and all the good information. But now let's get into design, which is an area that we see a lot of authors have trouble with. And one of the most common questions we are asked is, how can you make my book, my ebook, look exactly like my print book? So needless to say, that is a fallacy to even go in thinking that that's going to happen. However, when you look to design a book, either print or ebook version, obviously professional design is really critical to the overall success of that book. It really, I would say good design really levels the playing field as much as anything does. But every ebook format and print format has its own design issues. And solving them thoughtfully really provides a good experience for your readers, which is ultimately what you are looking for. It's interesting to see how ebooks have evolved over even such a short period of time. When they first came out, readers were much more accepting of issues and rendering problems and so on and so forth, but now they absolutely will not tolerate them. Laura, you may want to go through this pretty quickly because I'm going to talk not necessarily just to each particular bullet item, but more as an overall. Thank you. So, at any rate, one great advantage of ebooks is also a disadvantage. So, unlike print books where you control exactly what the reader sees on each page, the ebook consumer controls the appearance of the book for themselves, such as the text size, font, color, background, orientation. Does it appear in landscape or in portrait? So this has to factor in the constraints of specific e-readers as well. Majority of them are black and white unless you're working off of an iPad, so color versus black and white, the screen size, the memory capability, processing speed. All of these are things that you really do need to take into consideration because you have zero control over them. So as you are designing a book, there are certain things that you really need to pay attention to. We're going to discuss this a lot more in a few minutes, but I think it's important to note that you're going to choose the specific formats that you will distribute. For example, do you need simply a Mobi file, which is Kindle-oriented, or do you need EPUB? Do you want to be able to publish onto iPads? So each particular e-reader is going to have some variation, with Mobi definitely standing on its own and almost all others accepting a format of EPUB. The one thing to note, however, is an individual EPUB file is going to render very differently on each one of the platforms that it is assigned to, if you will. So how an EPUB file might look on Nook versus how it might look on a tablet could be totally different. There is also fixed layout versus reflowable. I will talk a little bit more about them in detail, but a fixed layout is just that. It is going to confine the layout so it does not change based on size or size of the screen or the other elements that affect it. Also, considering adaptive content across different types of devices, considering translation. So if you're planning on translating the book, that's something you're going to have to think about. And then, of course, how do you handle converting images, tables, and et cetera when they are applicable. So we look again at what good design output, how it's characterized. And it really is characterized by the lack of typos, special characters captured correctly in Unicode, working links, clear images, consistency of formatting throughout the book, and so on. The best piece of advice we can give you is to keep it linear. So remember, there's little room on a screen for sidebars or particular call-outs and so on and so forth. Design is also impacted by the conversion. So a print design won't simply convert to digital without work on the back end. Common design issues that we see for ebooks mostly revolve around reflowable ebooks. So problems with the text flying off or breaking at weird spots and things such as that. These issues also include design traits such as text on top of images or layered elements, tables with many columns and data, image captions not always being on the same page, line breaks, etc. And generally, layouts for ebooks won't exactly match the elements of the print book, and that's why you really need to consider having some professional advice, if not professional work done to ready your content for ebook conversion. So what kind of things do you need to keep in mind then when you are designing an ebook? We've talked about some of the issues that we see, but I think it's the most important factor here is to remember that there's really no such thing as a page in an ebook. It doesn't have that same element of reality that it does when it's in its print form. So it's really more defined by font size that the user chooses as well as how their e-reader renders it. And it's not going to have any of the same capabilities as its static counterpart would. So it may also appear very differently on any two devices. For example, the column in this particular image shows that ebooks are in a linear format, not the same layout as the print. So in this particular case, the the table ends up coming in the middle of the paragraph versus probably where the author had originally outlined it to appear. Indexes are not necessarily needed in an ebook because ebooks basically are searchable by nature. If you decide you must have one, you need to consider how to include it. For example, at DCL, when we prepare our ebooks for our clients, we embed the original page numbers and a link to the content from the original page. EPUB 3 allows you to retain the original hard copy page numbers if that is really necessary for you. But remember again, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, EPUB 3 is not necessarily widely accepted by most e-readers at this time. On the flip side, the table of contents becomes very important in an ebook and should be linkable. Objects, obviously, as table is technically in the middle of the paragraph. You may not want to put it in the same place in your ebook. So you really need to make decisions on how to best display the information and certainly where to display it. Also, there's a lot less real estate. You really, really need to remember that. And in designing books, there are going to be readers who are going to want to read it on their, looking at my Galaxy 3 right now. It's a fairly small screen, and yes, I do read ebooks on it. So what you might design for me would be totally different than how another reader may want to render it. Not all character sets also within Unicode are supported at this time, so you need to capture them as images if you want them to look the same. Over-stylizing the print book and expecting it to be identical for its ebook counterpart is highly unrealistic, and you want to, when looking at the ebook, not go into over-stylizing it unless you have professional help in doing so. The Unicode, by the way, with looking at more character sets, that is currently supported also by EPUB 3, but not any of the devices yet except for the iPad. So again, you know, technology has not necessarily caught up with what you are looking to do as of yet. When we start looking at production from here, once we get through the design issues and figure out how it's best to really lay out your book, many factors are going to affect the production phase. I've listed some here. Laura, if you will go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Print versus digital, I'm going to show you some examples later, which is going to help you to better understand what I mean here. But there are certainly lots of automated options, and I think that, you know, again, we can discuss some of the issues with them, but while you may have lots to choose from, you're going to find that there's really a vast variety of concerns that you may have with the software later. And if you're looking to incorporate software into your process, which is certainly advantageous in many regards, despite the issues, having that human element and the ability to combine best practices is really the best way to go. Just don't be under the impression that you take your manuscript and put it in one side and out pops an ebook on the other, because it's just not that simple. EPUB is a standard across most devices and applications, with the exception, of course, of the Kindle, which uses a format called MOBI. It is strictly specific to Kindle and Amazon. And while these are distinct yet related formats, converting to them simultaneously is the most cost-efficient process to decide early if you want to be going to both. So when we first speak with a new client, we want to know how they really are looking to publish, and if they're going more broad or want to be very focused in where they enable their files to be accessed. So it's important for you to consider all of that. When we talk about reflowable versus fixed, reflowable is a standard. It fits the size of the screen of the device that's based on user options, again, such as font, portrait versus landscape, and so on, remembering that the user controls what is visible on the screen. So we see a lot of issues with reflowable conversion when, again, the design is not considered ahead of time, and certainly has bailed out a lot of customers who have thought that regardless the screen would pick it up, the device would render it, and it would fix all of the ills. That's not necessarily true. With fixed layout, basically what it's doing is replicating the exact look of the print version. It is not standard, by the way, and it's mostly designed for books such as children's books, comic books, coffee table books, believe it or not, and so on. However, it is currently supported by a limited number of devices. So each manufacturer requires a unique file format. For example, the conversion required for Apple iBooks is completely different than that for Amazon Kindle. Just to add to the confusion, of course. Here at DCL, and I'm only mentioning this not as an ad for DCL, but to give you an idea of how complex some of this conversion process may be. We actually employ a 15-step ebook production process with different layers that need to be in place for quality output. So what we're doing is using a combination of automation all the way from logging and reviewing client materials to proofreading throughout the proofreading and obviously the QA process, conversion to the HTML, EPUB, MOBI, final quality control and delivery, and mixed in with all of this is that human element that I mentioned before. So we are using specific software that we have developed to handle the issues that we generally see in text. Most of the time, the software has to be adjusted to fit each particular element that it's going to be working on. So let's take a look at an automated PDF conversion. We took this particular print book and we tested it through multiple commercially available automated converters, so basically PDF to EPUB, and here is what happened. Next slide, please. In example 1, this happened to be an example where we used free software. And you will happen to notice, and I apologize this isn't quite as clear as it could be, but I think you'll get the gist, that the chapter header was found actually mid-paragraph rather than at the top. Multiple links to the same chapter heading appeared. Emphasis were not retained. Paragraph breaks do not match the source. Lots of extraneous data was put in. Also, if you go on to the next one, this happened to be with paid software. You will see some of the same exact issues, but missing random characters, so X versus exact. Again, emphasis not retained. Footnote linking character captured as plain text versus as a footnote. Indented formatting not retained. Going on, extra spaces were input without punctuation, missing spaces between words. I think you're starting to see what a difficult and uncomfortable user experience this is going to be presenting. Another example, this happened to also be paid software where the PDF repeating the header captured as plain text versus the way it should be. Again, merged paragraphs, unnecessary hyphens, definitely not good. So again, I can't stress enough that the same file is going to render differently depending on the reading software and the device. Here it gives you an example of actually both Kindle files, but one is designed for the PC, where the white text on the black background, if you look at the top of it, And the other is for Kindle, where the heading text does not appear at all. So these are the types of issues that need to be addressed during the conversion process, and certainly making certain that all is handled appropriately, because these are the types of issues that readers just, I mean, it really does begin to compromise the quality of your book. So what's the moral of the story? There are many idiosyncrasies that are unique to individual e-reader devices. Any of the complexity in the content is going to add to the issues that can be experienced, although I must tell you, I have heard many authors' problems even with converting the most plain, basic text novels. So certainly it's not for the faint of heart, and therefore by really employing experienced ebook designers, they will help you to utilize the techniques necessary to avoid some of these issues, and then looking for, again, having professional help in building out your ebook files. Quality is critical. Poor ratings are going to lead to drop distribution. So you can't and you should never look to shortcut the process. You've spent considerable time, money, and effort putting together your work, and you need to make certain for the ebook version that only the best output is out there for your readers. And they are rating them, and they are being highly critical. So again, what have we learned? Good design output is characterized by lack of typos and so on and so forth. Automated conversions are going to add to some of these issues, but don't necessarily work well, obviously, even for the most simple of materials. It's the human element in between, having a variety of automation in place to be able to handle all of the logging of the materials correctly, and again to the various checkpoints for quality control and whatnot throughout the conversion process is going to be critical. Since different devices render differently, obviously multiple outputs are recommended, and you certainly are going to want to take these all into consideration before you start. It's much more cost efficient and much more cost effective, as well as design effective, to do them all simultaneously. Special content requires special attention, and there are going to be many books, I would say probably 95% of what we see here at DCL, include some sort of special content, whether even it's a simple image or an image with a caption under it. Those are the types of things that we're talking about here. And again, it's your book. Your name is on it. You have to decide if it's really worth the effort to make it come out right. If it is, you have to look at it from the very beginning and consider all of the elements throughout the course of the design and production process. So, Laura, I will turn over to you if you have anything additional to add at this point, and then we can take some questions.
No, actually, I don't. Unfortunately, I seem to have the wrong slide here for our final slide. I don't know how that happened.
Okay, this slide has taken on a life of its own. Welcome to technology, yes. Folks.
It has. Let me just quickly change that. There.
Okay, terrific, terrific.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Okay. So I know we do have a couple of questions. So why don't we go ahead with those, and we'll look for others as we go along.
Okay.
So my book cover is in a separate PDF that shows front, spine, and back. Specifically, what do you need from me for the cover? So I guess this is probably more for one for me. But if you have the front, spine, and back cover ready in one PDF, we will just extract the front cover so we can incorporate it in the front cover of your Mobi and EPUB file. So you don't have to worry about sending each one separately or a separate front cover PDF. So as long as they're noted in the PDF that you provide to us, we can handle that. See here, another question. This one's for you, actually, Laura. I have ISBN numbers. Do I need to get barcodes for ebooks?
No. There's no, in fact, if there is a barcode within an ebook file, in some cases the vendor will reject it. So there's no, barcodes exist so that physical objects can be scanned and matched to items in a database. With an ebook, because there is no physical component, a barcode really isn't necessary.
Okay, terrific. Here's another one. Is there any advantage to creating the original text in tagged PDF or Word with styles? From our standpoint, I would say either would be fine. Obviously, the more information that we are provided with, the better it's going to be. But we work with everything, including print books that we remove the spine and go from there. So, no necessary, it's not a necessary step for you to take. If you have it, that's great. If not, it's fine. Another one, good tools for conversion from, say, Word to various flavors of EPUB. To be perfectly honest with you, I really don't want to get into talking about specific tools on this this broadcast. If you would like to contact me separately, we can walk you through some of them. Again, I must say and stress, however, that automation is only a piece of it. And automation plays a big part in what we do because obviously it does help to preserve the quality. But the software has to be programmed and set up and to handle your particular information. So even while something might be classified a good tool, it does not necessarily mean it's going to be able to handle your conversion as well as it should. Laura, this one may be for you. What file size do you recommend for the marketing image and the actual embedded image? I'm looking for an average because I know it varies between formats and devices.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with averages. It's not going to give you the accuracy that you need. It really depends on the vendor. Different vendors have different requirements, and so you need to decide to whom you are, selling your title, and go investigate what their requirements are. I wish I had a more standardized answer. I don't.
I
this
know.
is a market that's in flux. It's changing every minute. Linda, I'm sure you've experienced where Apple has changed their requirements without telling you.
Yes.
Yeah, Apple's particularly notorious for changing on a dime.
Yes.
So, standardized answers are very hard to come by, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you're going to find that regardless of what question you are asking us,
Yes.
because there really is no true rule of thumb. There are only best practices
Exactly.
to apply, and it's a very different animal.
I just started
Go ahead,
saying,
Laura.
I've just started saying, that the answer to everything is it depends.
Right. Right, it does, unfortunately, because we always sound like we're hedging, but we're really not.
No, we're not.
Another question, do you recommend source files be in Microsoft Word or InDesign or PDF? I will say from our standpoint, we work with all of it. PDF, however, if you are looking to do this on your own and you are looking to automated tools to do so, PDF is going to be the worst one for you to work from, because many of the automated tools just can't simply understand what the PDF image is providing. So obviously Word is the basic, and we work with InDesign as well. But and we do convert from PDF, by the way. It's just that our process is quite different than if you're going out there on your own and you want to try to use this. Oh, quick question I can answer. How would I get a quote from DCL? We need to see a source file of your work, and then we can determine what level of complexity it falls under. It really is the complexity and the type of outputs you're looking to do. Obviously, fixed layout, by the way, is much, 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 much more costly than converting to reflowable. So if you do have a children's book or something that is going to require that really rigid layout, you do need to be prepared for more costly conversion. Can you tell us what your proofing and QA process is? Do you proof on multiple devices? Yes, we do. That's an excellent question, and one I absolutely should have mentioned during my segment. Yes. At DCL, regardless of whether we are converting to eBook formats or converting X to XML, whatever the conversion project is, QA and quality control is at the forefront of every single process. So I can't say that we just look at it at the end, because we don't. We build QA into really the automation software and tools we use. We have our own specific quality control software that we employ at the end, and we also have an editorial team that does proofreading and certainly final QA. What you want to try to avoid is having the QA be only on the back end, because cleaning up a very messy file is very, very, very costly. So you want to have the conversion be as clean and as accurate as possible. With the second part of this question being, do we check on multiple devices? We most definitely do. We take the finished files and we put them really through a fairly rigorous test. So I can't say we test it on every device there is out there, but certainly all the popular ones, to make certain that it renders as needed on different size screens, as well as the iPad versus the Kindle, and so on and so forth. So yes. And that is important for you to do before you release your file if you are doing this on your own. Don't look at it on your own device and say, woohoo, it's working, because that doesn't necessarily going to mean it's working on mine. So is authoring in XML a viable option, and would the author need to provide the DTD used? This is a question I'm going to need to answer probably offline, because there are a lot of questions I would need to ask in order to really answer this completely. But yes, it is a viable option, authoring in XML. We are seeing a lot of technical documentation, technical manuals, user guides, so on and so forth, coming out in ebook format. So it is by no means just simply novels for us to all read on the beach in the summertime. So XML is really a big part of this, and when we consult with our clients, we do talk to them really about their main objectives as an organization, if in fact you are one. How you're looking to really utilize this content and where it all needs to go. But XML is really more of a content strategy, where ebooks are an output, So the answer is yes, but if you need more information, please feel free to contact me. Wow, we have a lot of questions, Laura. You and I may be busy after this. is it possible to convert from FrameMaker, structured FrameMaker with XML? Yes, yes, and yes. We can work with all of it. If I want to receive a quote for conversion by DCL, yes, you would send the source file to me, and you should have, yes, it's on the screen. Just looking through this long list, Laura. Hold on, I'm getting back.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I can't see the question.
No, actually, Andrew's putting them through the chat box because we were having a little bit of a technical issue there.
Got it.
So I am scrolling through this list, trying to make sure I didn't forget anything. Here's another one. We have heard that previewer programs are not 100% accurate, that on the actual devices the book often looks different. Laura, have you guys had any experience with that?
No, we have not, but we don't really get into the, the internal contents of the book. Bowker's core business is describing the book as opposed to, the actual content of it.
Okay. Yeah, again, previewers are not e-reader devices, so I guess, you have to take that for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to really make certain that you are looking at your files, your final output on actual devices, because I can't say that I have had good luck or heard good luck happening to clients who have used previewers. Just was curious if you had on that, Laura.
Yeah. No.
Here's definitely one you might be able to talk about, Laura, because it's about distribution. Is it difficult or risky in any way to upload the book ourselves?
It is not difficult. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple make it easy on purpose because they want to encourage it. So I personally went through the self-publishing process last year just so that I could, walk the walk. And I can attest that it is ridiculously simple to do it. It's like uploading an attachment to an email almost. It's the same basic functionality. The risky part of it is that, what if you upload the wrong file, the wrong version, then you have to go and go through the upload process all over again. And I'd say probably the most time-consuming piece of it is entering in all the metadata about your book, but that has to be done.
All right, great. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Laura, do you have any advice about what to write on the author's page?
That's
a great question.
It is. That is. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on your audience. If you are writing, if you're publishing fiction, your bio can probably be a little more casual, a little more literary. But if you're an expert in a particular field, you'll want your bio to cite your credentials and help people understand why your expertise can help them. So I would say also we used to advise that authors run their bios through the Google AdWords tool, but I know that the algorithm in that tool has changed somewhat, so I don't know if it's as effective as it used to be. But that could help, an author come up with keywords that people might be searching on, and so you'd want your biography to reflect what, what those search terms are, so that your information will come up.
Okay, great. Let me see what time it is. Yes, okay. One more here. Is ISBN the same as getting an ISBN for a hard copy book?
That is my favorite question.
Yeah, and actually it has a couple different questions attached to it. So, or is it something different and apart?
Right.
I understand also that you need different ISBNs for different versions.
Right. Okay.
But is So maybe you can talk about that whole topic.
Yes, I'm happy to expound at great length on this.
Good. You have 6 minutes.
Okay. There is no such thing as an EISBN. Vendors use the term to describe the ISBN for the ebook. But according to the ISBN standard, an ISBN is an ISBN regardless of whether it's identifying a print or a digital book. So ebooks don't have EISBNs. They have ISBNs the same way a hardcover does, a paperback does, an audiobook does. We don't call them hardcover ISBNs and paperback ISBNs. An ebook is just another format of a book, and all formats of books, according to the ISBN standard, should receive ISBNs. The tricky part is that not all ebook vendors require ISBNs. They recommend them, but they don't require them, and in many cases they don't display them. Of course, at Bowker we encourage publishers to assign ISBNs to their ebooks because they're already assigning them to the print components, and chances are their systems rely heavily on using ISBNs to track their ebooks through production, through sales, through distribution. So it just makes sense for them to assign an ISBN to the ebook format. The standard does call for each format of an ebook to receive a separate ISBN. That standard is not necessarily adhered to in the practical market. The ISBN is undergoing revision this year, and probably a new set of best practices is going to come out of that revision process. So I will have more information on that as we go through that review. I'm on the committee for the ISBN revision. So what we advise in the meantime is at least differentiate your different publishing formats with ISBNs, and if you if you're already using ISBNs in your workflow for distribution, then it makes sense to continue to assign ISBNs to each format of an ebook, because it's really a lot easier to keep track of all the digital assets associated with a particular edition if you have the ISBN tying those digital assets together.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think that about does it for today's broadcast. As I said, please stay tuned for subsequent webinars in this series. We will be announcing dates very, very shortly. You can always check in at dclab.com and look for our DCL Learning Series logo, and you will see all of the upcoming webinars that are actually scheduled with dates, times, and a link through to the registration page. We really appreciate you attending, and Laura, I can't thank you enough. I certainly love working with you, and your knowledge is just beyond belief. So thank you again, and
thank you.
Really, really appreciate having such a great session today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.